Greetings. My name is David Paige, and I am Managing Director of Legal Fee Advisors, a fee consulting service in New York. The purpose of this video is to help a typical client read, understand, and work through their legal bills. Give clients just like you tools for discussion with your lawyers with the result of greater understanding. This video applies to typical legal bills charged at hourly rates in the U.S. State laws can differ on legal billing. Review everything for definitive information in your own state. It does not apply to international bills outside of the U.S. This video also does not apply to flat fee arrangements or to contingency or percentage arrangements for the compensation of lawyers. Here's what we will do in this video. We're going to review a basic engagement letter, the kind that most people get. We'll read a typical legal bill. We'll identify issues and questions for your lawyers. And the result should be your ability to have an informed discussion with your lawyer to have greater understanding. In my opinion, most attorneys really do mean well, but some are inattentive to their billing obligations. Others can be offended if their invoices are questioned, but there's no doubt clients have a right to ask questions. This video will help you ID issues for that discussion. Here are my basic recommendations. Ask your lawyer questions quickly. Don't delay. As soon as you get your bill, make the call. Confirm understandings reached with your lawyer in writing. Email is just fine. Try to understand your lawyer's answers and their point of view. Work on understanding the reasons for the charges, and if everything doesn't work, obtain help from your local bar association. To review your legal bill, you will need the engagement letter and you will need your legal bill. As a first step, review the engagement letter that you received from your lawyer at the beginning of your relationship. Please keep in mind that engagement letters vary by state rules. Each law firm usually has its own preferences, but common elements are like this. Hourly rates by timekeeper are usually given, how often legal bills will be sent to the client, whether a deposit or a retainer of some kind is required, and how disbursements or out-of-pocket expenses are to be charged to the client. What you see here is a typical engagement letter that I created just for this exercise. It looks like many other engagement letters that are out there. This one is a New York State form. Now, notice that I am highlighting the hourly rate for partners at $450 an hour, associates at $300 an hour, and that you will be informed if the rates change. Now notice that I'm highlighting that you should be billed every 30 days. You should not have old charges in there. I'm also looking at the out-of-pocket costs and expenses portion. Such expenses should be incurred in connection with your matter and not just everyday overhead of the law firm. As in most states, you will have a right to arbitrate or mediate fee disputes. Now let's review a demonstration invoice that I have created for the purposes of this video. We're going to begin this invoice review by checking the rates against the engagement letter so that you understand whether you're being charged the rates that you bargained for when you first started working with this law firm. It's really important to do this so that the rates aren't changed without your knowledge or your understanding. We're beginning the bill review by looking at the rate portion at the bottom of the bill. Most of the time that's where they are, although sometimes you may have to ask or do some calculation on your own. I'm finding that the partner rate is at $450 an hour. That was right. But there is an associate at $350 an hour. That doesn't sound right. So we're going to go back and we're going to check the engagement letter. That's right. Partners were to be charged at $450 an hour and associates at $300. Since the invoice shows one associate being charged at $350 an hour and the engagement letter says $300 an hour, somehow your rate for that associate is different from the engagement letter, and this needs to be discussed. Now let's go to step 3. Step 3 is when you go through the bill for the purpose of making notations of unclear task descriptions. This is so that you can ask your counsel for explanations of any part of the bill that you don't understand so that they can help you understand and that you feel better about paying the bill. You can see a number of unclear task descriptions. Work on file, that doesn't tell you much. You might wonder what this conference was right here, or whether binding material was something you reasonably should pay for. How about preparing the monthly bill for the client? Something else, what about this research right here? And when you look at the bottom of the page, you might want to say, what were all of these individuals responsible for doing in this part of the bill? In my experience, one of the biggest issues between clients and their lawyers is when a client receives a bill that is very high and the client does not understand why. This brings us to the next step. Task description should be checked for efficiency. Here are the questions to ask. First, was the correct timekeeper performing the task, the most efficient timekeeper? Number 2, were the right number of timekeepers performing the tasks? And number 3, are timekeepers working on professional matters or non-professional or traditionally clerical tasks? If you look at the timekeepers here, you have to ask yourself, why are there so many timekeepers? Are they really necessary for efficiency? So one of the first things that we ask next is, do they seem efficient? Are there too many working on the same type of thing? And are lawyers working on clerical tasks? How about those travel arrangements? Is that something a lawyer should be doing? Here we have 15 hours traveling to court for a hearing. Is that sound right to you? Mom is printing, mailing, and binding. That doesn't sound quite right that you should be charged for that. How about burning CDs? Or preparing monthly billing for you? Here, on January 20th, we have scheduling being charged for. And going down a little further, we see that there are 12 hours being charged by one person and 10 hours for another on what looks like the same deposition on the same day. That requires a question. Now, if we just take another look further down the bill, what we're going to find then is training. Does that sound like something you should be paying for, or loading data? All of these issues should be noted so that you can talk them through with your lawyer and come to some agreement. The next step is to make sure that time charges are current. What this means is that you want to be able to review the time charges, take a look at whether they fit the month that the charges are supposed to be in. Remember, we had the engagement letter provision that said that time charges are supposed to be sent every 30 days. So if we look at the bill itself, what we see is this is for the period ending January 31st, 2020, and when we review the bill, we find that there are time charges from December of 2019. That should be discussed with your lawyer. The last step in bill review is to check your disbursements and expenses and ask a few questions. First, are the expenses described clearly? Do the expenses seem fairly related to your matter, or do they seem to be part of overhead? Those are all issues that you should be thinking about when you look at the expense portion. We're going to take a look at the bottom of the bill. That's where disbursements usually are listed, and see if we can understand them, and if we do think that they're related to your matter, or whether they are part of the law firm's ongoing expenses or overhead. So looking here, we see overtime for secretaries, scanning, and miscellaneous, which we don't understand at all. All of these expenses are at best very unclear and should be discussed with your lawyer. At this point, we put together the questions for your lawyers. Please explain the rate change for the associate. Did you give me notice of the rate change? Why are there so many timekeepers, and could there have been a more efficient way to perform this work? Why were you charging me for what looks like clerical work? That doesn't seem fair. Could you please explain some of the vague descriptions, and can you please justify the expenses? Action items. Confirm your agreement or disagreement in writing. Ask for revisions as agreed with your lawyer on the phone. And if there are still issues that remain after you've tried many times, now is the time to contact your local bar association. This brings us to our final recommendations. First, make sure you read your invoice carefully. Ask for explanations and revisions that you think are fair. Number 2, check your invoice and voice concerns quickly. Don't wait. And do it in writing if possible. Number 3, once you've spoken with your lawyer, confirm your agreements in writing. Next, ask for revisions to the engagement letter if updates are needed so that you have a clear understanding with your lawyer. Number 5, it's generally a good idea to ask for budgets or estimates of future work. Confirm these estimates or budgets in writing. And last, if all else fails, contact your local bar association. They usually have a mediation or arbitration proceeding that can help. Good luck with everything, and thanks for listening.